think what's being really overlooked, it's very acute in the UK, but I think it applies in many other parts as well, is the role of natural gas.
Right.
So right now we're talking a really big conversation about transitioning away from fossil fuels and electrification, and we are, and the share of renewables is certainly growing. But we do know that until the end of the decade, at least, we are going to have an increase in natural gas demand for a number of reasons. Here in the UK, we have a couple of nuclear plants that are retiring. For example, we do need to make sure that we have that supply locked in. We do need to make sure we have the infrastructure to import it and then pass it on to the customers. At the same time, instead, we're having a conversation about shutting down existing supplies and shutting down infrastructure and so forth. So we keep making this problem of targeting our reliable supply without focusing on the demand. But if you push supply down faster than you can demand, it puts you into these really complicated situations like we saw with that Russia put us into. This time we're imposing it upon ourselves. So it's a huge, I think, oversight right now for us to be a bit too zealous about how fast we can decarbonize. And I think, particularly acute in the power generation sector, the idea of 100% clean grid sounds great, but you really get to diminishing returns past 80-90%. We should be aiming for a 80-90% clean grid, and then you have a small reserve of peaking capacity for natural gas. If you're talking about overall climate emission reductions, carbon emission reductions, that's the way to do it. You decarbonize as much as you can on the power grid, and then you focus on transportation, you focus on heat, because you need cheap electricity to do that. If you push out all of the gas and you force us to rely exclusively on batteries or other storage assets that are developing quickly but aren't being deployed quite as quickly as we need them to, you're going to put ourselves in a very difficult situation where electricity costs skyrocket and it becomes impossible to decarbonize some of those hard-to-decarbonize sectors that would rely on electric arc furnaces or EVs and so forth. So I think that's a big mistake that we might be heading onto, and we need to be really critical about how quickly we can get gas out of the system, because if we move too quickly, our overall emissions reduction strategy would be undermined.
And I can imagine that's a little bit unpopular. So do you see the snapping back that people are saying, okay, well, it's all good, but like we need the natural gas discussion now because it's just a necessity.
Looking at the political parties here in the UK, I think there is a commitment to the timelines. I think when you have a public conversation with some of these decision makers in a panel or a session, very much so we're going to decarbonize, it's going to happen. But speaking with their policymakers in private, there is a very real awareness that it's physically not possible to do it by 2030. So it's a challenge I think everyone in the sector is aware of. We don't quite know how to square that circle. But hopefully the experience of the past 2 years has made people a bit more critical about how quickly and ambitiously we can move and how important it is to have that buffer and that wiggle room. So I think cooler heads will prevail and we'll be in a stronger position.